Hey everyone, welcome to ML2LM. Today we'll be diving into Python's control flow, how your code makes decisions and repeats actions. We'll cover conditional statement, that is the if, elif, else ladder, loops which include for loop and while loop, and control statements like break, continue, and pass. So let's get started. First up, we have conditional statements, the if, elif, else ladder. These statements help program make decisions. If a condition is met, then the first block of code is run. Otherwise, the else block is run. So we have an example where we are checking if a number we provide is even or odd, and if the mod of that number is the remainder of that number when we divide it by 2 is 0, then the number is printed as even, otherwise it's printed as odd. So when we provide 25, we get the number is odd. If we provide 24, then we get the number is even. So this condition is met when we provide 24, and therefore it's printing that the number is even. Similarly, we can add multiple conditions. For example, if a score is more than 80, then we print grade A. Otherwise, if it is not more than 80, but it is more than 60, then it prints grade B. And likewise, if it is less than nothing, none of the conditions are met, then it will print grade F. So now let's move on to loops. There are two kinds of loops. One is a for loop and the other is while loop. If we have a predetermined number of steps that we want to run the loop for, then we can use for loop. So here I will loop from 0 to 4 and it will print the square of that number. Whereas for while loop, the number of steps to be followed is not predetermined. We can dynamically increase the length of the step which is incremented by. So here we are increasing it by 1, we can increase it by 2, and we can even change how we increase I depending on some conditions. Now then we have control statements, break, continue, and pass. So if you observe the output here, it's just printing the score as processing score. Now, when we provide 192, it's going to the continue block. So the code, it checks it is more than 100, and then it skips the out of range score, and then it goes back and goes to the next number. It prints 1 then. And then when it encounters a negative value, our condition provided is it will break out of the loop. So it's exiting from here only. It's not going to 89 and not proceeding further. And when we have 50, we have a condition if score equals 50, then we have pass. So pass means that we can add some future logic here, but for now it will do nothing. So when we are at 50, it's printing this pass. So it's going inside this loop and then it's continuing to the next value. Now, the next concept that we have here is a infinite loop, where the loop is based on some kind of condition. As I mentioned, when the number of steps to be followed is not predetermined, we can use a while loop. So this code keeps asking the user for the answer to this question, what is 5 into 7? And we can provide 31, 32. It will keep asking until the condition is met, that is, we give the right answer. And when we give the right answer, it says correct and exits out of the loop. So now the next, remember we had discussed earlier while discussing data structures and lists that we can use loops to traverse through a list. So that is what we're doing here. So for country in countries, so in countries, the country variable is passing through this list and printing each country. Now, in list comprehension, we can add conditions while passing through the list. So here we have a condition that if the first alphabet of the name of the country is I, that is, if the country's name begins with an I, it will then only it will um, add the name of the country to a new list that we are preparing, and that new list is being stored in I countries. So when we print I countries, we get only the countries that begin with an I. Next we have zip. So zip is essentially it's zipping the two lists together into a tuple. So the first element, India and New Delhi, its capital, that is being zipped into a tuple. Nepal and Kathmandu is zipped into a tuple. So if now we keep the same condition and run, the new I countries list will include on the list of countries that begin with I and their capitals. And that's it for today's lesson on Python control flow. We covered if, elif, else for decision making, loops for and while for iteration, control statements like break, continue, and pass, and interactive loops for user input. If you find this series helpful, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Also, comment below if you have any questions or suggestions, and we'll be happy to answer them for you. See you in the next video. Happy coding!